Andrew McKellar, welcome back to Afternoon Briefing. Not a fan of this decision, I'm guessing?
Well, good to be with you. Look, it's bad for business. We think it doesn't strike the right balance. We really wanted to see an outcome that would be fair and responsible. I think this is erred on the upper side, and certainly what's been done on the minimum wage, I think that's a bit tricky. It really is 8.6%. It's well above inflation. More broadly, our concern is that this adds into cost for small business at the moment, very vulnerable, and the risk is that that will feed back into inflation and create further uncertainty in terms of what happens next on interest rates.
Clearly, business is always going to be concerned about any extra cost to its operations, but is that blind to the significant cost of living pressures that so many Australians are feeling right now?
Not at all. I mean, we say that workers do deserve a pay rise. There's no doubt about that. It needs to be a fair and reasonable pay rise. We've got to get that inflation rate back down to that 2 to 3% target range. We're still some way off that. Other input costs are rising still, so there's a lot of those factors out there. But anything here that pushes much above 4%, I think the Reserve Bank Governor himself has signalled that that's an issue. If we were able to get productivity moving, then really I think we could be much more confident about having some of these higher increases. But that's a big issue at the moment, and we're not seeing that progress in place. We don't really see an ambitious agenda, to really get that moving, and that's something we do need.
But is that something that, if that agenda is not there, does that mean that workers should miss out on a pay rise of this magnitude? Is it really an either-or prospect?
Well, to some degree it is, and I think we've got to get inflation back under control. If we can get it back down to the 2 to 3%, then an outcome of 3.5%, up to 4%, depending on what's happening with productivity. Otherwise, honestly, this outcome is going to be used back up again. It's just going to feed back into inflation. It's going to be chewed up by higher prices. In fact, it's a complete illusion that workers will be getting ahead as a result of this decision.
If we talk about the minimum wage, it really only equates to an extra $1.80 or so an hour for workers. Is that really going to tip the balance that much? What can you get for $1.80?
Well, the way they've structured this decision is in two parts. So firstly, they've changed the actual base on which the minimum wage is measured. So they've put that up. That's a 2.7% increase off the bat. So that takes us from a base pay packet of around $812 a week up to $830 plus, and then you add another 5.75% in addition. So 8.6% overall. It is above inflation, and then you have what the rest going through the award system. The 5.75% on all the award rates. So honestly, it's not striking the right balance. It will put a lot of pressure, particularly on vulnerable small businesses at the moment. They're the ones who are paying award wages. Their profitability hasn't been strong, declining in many areas, in retail, manufacturing, construction, under a lot of pressure at the moment. Restaurants, cafes, accommodation, all of these areas really struggling at the moment. They're the ones who are going to be impacted.
You described there a lack of an agenda when it comes to boosting productivity across the country at the moment, and that also needs to be addressed. Where are the areas of concern there, or the areas that you want to see some action to try to get that moving?
Well, I think there's a number of things that can be done. Most importantly, though, we do need to promote flexible arrangements in the labour market. We need to ensure that that's possible at the enterprise level. And one of the things that we are most concerned about is to see another set of industrial relations changes on the horizon to things like contract labour, independent contracting, casual employment. All of these potential changes limit that flexibility. They take us in the wrong direction. The risk is they'll introduce more rigidity into the labour market, make it harder to set up arrangements that work for employers and employees. and I think that's heading in the wrong direction. So we do need a big agenda. There's some important work underway on skills and training. So that's a good thing. But in areas like infrastructure, in areas like digitalisation, investment in technology, business investment to support productivity, I think these are areas where there needs to be a discrete focus from government, from business, working together to get those better results.
You've used the term flexibility and rigidity there. There'd be plenty of people out there suggesting that the flexibility that has been in the system hasn't actually delivered decent pay packets for Australian workers, and that rigidity, maybe that is part of the answer there.
Well, I think that would be taking us in the wrong direction, but you're right. Productivity performance in Australia, and in fact in many parts of the world, over a period of about 10 years has been very poor. We do have to find a way to turn that around. We believe that a number of the elements to that, skills and training, investing more in that space, pushing forward on digitalisation, addressing fundamental issues with supporting infrastructure, the way our ports operate, obviously the energy transition, that's also a big part of it. So look, I think there's elements there that people can identify. Our tax system, again, nobody's tried serious tax reform for really more than 2 decades. It's time to put that back on the agenda and have a serious discussion about things like that.
Tax does often seem to be put in the too hard basket, I think, in this country. We heard this week from the Reserve Bank Governor Philip Lowe appearing before estimates, giving his assessment of how the economy is ticking along, what he takes into consideration when he and his colleagues start pulling that interest rate lever. Was there anything that he said during the week that concerned you?
Well, he did point to the fact that we need productivity to be back on the agenda. He talked about what a reasonable wage outcome would be and what could be supported in the current environment. Obviously, there is a lot of work being undertaken within the bank. They're thinking very seriously about what happens next on interest rates. It's a finely balanced decision. We are concerned on the data that we're seeing that the interest rate increases that have occurred over the months since last year, 11 increases in total, that this is having now a real impact on a number of sectors in the economy. It's really starting to bite with a lot of areas for small business and obviously households. And we think, caution needs to be exercised as they approach what happens in the coming months. Our concern is that a decision like that from today, from the Fair Work Commission, won't help that situation. It increases the risk that we'll see some further focus on monetary policy by the Reserve Bank in the months ahead.
Well, Andrew McKellar, thanks for your time.
Great, thank you.